Hey, this is Ray Powell here with the North Virginia Patriot Show. We're pleased to present this interview with G. Edward Griffin to you, and visit our website, northvirginiapatriots.com, for more information about our show and about all the topics you'll hear discussed here.
And we are very excited for this particular hour of the broadcast. We have G. Edward Griffin on the air with us. Mr. Griffin, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. We are so glad to have you on. You know, a lot of people know who you are, and a lot of people have read your stuff and followed you. And recently, based on all your research and The Creature from Jekyll Island, of course, being your latest book to come out. And, you know, I think I want to start off by just kind of pointing out that here on Ron Paul Radio, we think we have a little bit of a younger demographic. And, you know, myself, I'm 34, and TVMH is about the same age. And we're all here, and we're all just starting to open our eyes. And I know I've done a ton of research lately into the international banking industry and the Federal Reserve and just how this stuff has all come together. And it's just been blowing my mind, and it's been so overwhelming that I've been just, once you start opening that can of worms, you know, there's just so much to find out, so much to learn. And then I come to find out that a guy like you has been around for about 40 years that you've been looking into this stuff.
Well, actually, longer than that. I started to become aware of these things back in my first recollection was 1959. So you do the math. By 1960, I was, you know, in complete runaway mode.
Gotcha.
I was so completely amazed at what I was learning that I had never learned in school, and certainly didn't pick it up in the media. And it was just an accident that I began to find out what's really going on in the world. And once I got a peek at that, and just like you fellas are today, there was no stopping.
Exactly. I can totally relate to that. And so what was it that tipped you off? What was it that kind of got you on that track?
Well, it's a series of little things, none of which are particularly dramatic. The first time I remember ever seeing a glimpse of a political issue that was not what I had been fed was when I picked up a little magazine in a client's office. One day, it was called The Free Man, and it was just a little bunch of essays dealing with free market philosophy, which is certainly nothing I learned in school. And I thought, gee, this is interesting, so I subscribed to the magazine and began to read it. But it wasn't until about a year later that I heard somebody say something very critical about the United Nations, and that offended me because I had come through the mill, and I had been pretty much convinced that the UN was our last best hope for peace, you know, and it was a chance to build global brotherhood, you know, and all that sort of thing. All those nice rosy images that we have about world government.
Right, the things that we really wish was very true.
Yeah, the things we want to be true, we assume are true because we want them to be true. And here's a fellow came along and said, well, these aren't true. In fact, he was saying that just the opposite, that the global government being built there at the United Nations was not the kind of government we want at all. In fact, it was more along the line of what Adolf Hitler had in mind. And I found that very offensive. And so for the first time in my life, I went to the library on my own, not because I had a school assignment or something like that, but on my own to see if I could read up on this issue and prove that this fellow was wrong. Well, the more I got into it, especially with the UN documents themselves, I began to realize that, hey, this is true. Where have I been all my life? And
right.
So that was about 1960, and it's been a running battle ever since.
Wow. So 47 years. I mean, where are you now? I mean, is that really frustrating to you that the common knowledge has not been distributed? That is not, you know, that people are not being more aware after 47 years of this stuff? I mean, and who knows how long this information was available even before you found it? Well,
yes, that's true. I've run into a lot of very old books that were published back, literally at the turn of the century. You see, by the time Woodrow Wilson had taken office, the forces that we're dealing with today were already well developed, and they embodied themselves in the United States in the personage of Edward Mandell House. They used to call him Colonel House, but he was not really a colonel. Edward Mandell House had connections in Great Britain and was a representative of an organization which was dedicated, even in those days, to create world government, to get the United States and all other nations to surrender their sovereignty and to merge into a world global government based on the model of collectivism, not on the model of freedom or free enterprise or allowing individuals, the freedom to choose their own culture, their own lifestyle, their own occupations, whatever. No, the model they had in mind was a totalitarian model.
Right.
And so that's what, and this fellow, Edward Mandell House, was the advocate of that, and he became President Woodrow Wilson's alter ego. He actually moved into the White House and lived in the White House all the time Woodrow Wilson was there. And this is the fellow that never showed up in the history books, that actually was determining American foreign policy in those days, got us into World War I, and ever since then, these forces have been very prominent everywhere in Washington, D.C., but they're very adept at keeping hidden that, they don't like to be exposed.
Right, staying just under the level of the public radar, but yet having the ear of the key politicians who need to enact these policies.
Yes, exactly. So you see that the literature was full of this information really going back to 1913. And I never saw any of it. So you're quite right. Even though I got on board about 1960, there were many people in the world who were quite aware long before that.
Now, one of the things that I talk about sometimes is, people use the word conspiracy, and Ron Paul likes to use the word battle of ideas rather than conspiracy. He doesn't like to necessarily judge these people as evil or bad intentioned. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, when this idea of collectivism, I mean, do you really think that these people have good intentions for the human race?
Well, there's a couple of questions there. Let's deal with the word conspiracy. I have no problem with the word, although I know that some people have a knee-jerk reaction when they hear it because they have been conditioned to think that anybody that believes there's a conspiracy out there has got to be some kind of a wacko. And I feel sorry for those people because obviously they've never read a history book, because history is replete with conspiracies. I don't think there's any major event in history that ever occurred without conspiracies involved from top to bottom.
Right, going back all the way to the Roman Empire.
Of course, conspiracies are the most common component of history. And if you doubt that, just go into any local courthouse any day and listen to the cases that are brought before the court, and many of them involve conspiracies of one kind or another. Conspiracies are a fact of life. And when people scoff at the idea of a conspiracy, that just tells me that they've been programmed. They don't really understand what reality is. But no, taking it beyond that, call it what you will. The dictionaries define conspiracies pretty much the same depending on which dictionary, but they all have to have certain components. First of all, there have to be two or more people, okay? And they have to be plotting together to accomplish an objective by coercion or deceit, and the objective has to be illegal or immoral. That's the definition of a conspiracy.
That makes sense.
All right. Yeah, that's what it is. So let's take a look at it.
That's what the dictionary says, so I think we can go with that.
Let me go with that. So we take a look at the forces that we're dealing with in the political arena. We see that there are definitely more than two people, more than one person. There are two or more people, a lot of people involved, as a matter of fact. And we see that they are very good at using coercion and deceit. Nobody really questions that. But now the question, the third element is, what are they trying to accomplish? Is it illegal or immoral? Well, the fact of the matter is, a lot of these people are the ones who are making the laws. They're the ones in the high positions in government. And so everything they're doing, or not everything, but almost everything they're doing, is entirely legal. And because they write the laws, they're forcing everyone to do what they want.